Hey folks, Quilly18 here, and welcome to a very special Monday live stream, because this is our first chance to play CK3 live with all you guys. I've been playing for some time now. I've got over 50 hours into this already on Steam, but it ain't the same if I ain't playing with you guys. Let's get the main screen turned on. Hey everybody, good morning, and boop. Counter should be going. There we go. All right. So I wanted a counter up there for people who are wondering when we're going to be playing the game versus whatnot, because we're going to be starting off. We're going to be jumping into the game, but it's going to be to do sort of Q&A, answer some questions from you guys, look at different cultures, times, places we can start at, religions, look at the different mechanics, all that sort of stuff. Hopefully get a bunch of the question asking out of the way. And then what we're going to do is we're going to focus on playing the game after that. So I figured, well, I don't know. We'll see how long. It might not be an hour of this stuff. It'll really depend on how many questions about various technical things people have. You plan on playing Wasteland 3? I do have a code for it. If it wasn't for CK3 coming out this week, Wasteland 3 is probably what I'd be streaming right now. So I don't know. I really want to do it, but it'll be maybe tricksy to find the window in there for it. We'll see. Well, you post a CK3 tutorial on YouTube. It's certainly my intention. I'd actually hoped to record CK3 stuff yesterday in preparation for that, but as it turned out, it took longer than expected for me to finish my EU4 campaign. I did something like 7 recordings on Thursday, 10 recordings on Friday, and I think 4 more videos I did yesterday to wrap up the EU4 campaign, because I wanted to be able to focus entirely on CK3. Unfortunately, it meant that I didn't have enough time yesterday to start working on some tutorial-y stuff that I want to do. But we'll see what we can do. Partially, this first hour is semi-tutorially to cover some of the new mechanics we're going to see. Is it possible to blob and get massiveness like EU4? Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. Although, to me, and I've always said this about CK2, well, CK2 at release, it felt like blobbing and stuff like that was basically, you know, the point of the game. Because there was a limit to how much you could do out of the box in CK2 at release. But very quickly, with everything they added, I mean, CK2 has been out for 8 years, and they never stopped working on the game. Patch after patch after patch after patch, and all the expansions. And if you look at what the game is, CK2 is now, even without the expansions, you just look at what CK2 is now versus release, and they're basically completely different games. And you factor in all the expansions, and it's just ludicrous. And I like that dev style for strategy games. To me, nothing makes me more disappointed than devs who release a strategy game and then disappear for 5 years and then come out with the next version. No! It's a good game. Like, love on it. Keep working on it. Keep changing it. Keep tweaking it. Keep responding to, you know, how people are playing the game, how they find the balance and that sort of thing. So there's all that. But anyway, CK2 became really, you could still play it as a map painter, but you'd be denying yourself some of the funnest parts of the game, which are just when things go badly. And so to me, the Crusader Kings game is, it's at its peak when you really roleplay. Yeah, everyone wants to get big and strong, sure. But if you really roleplay your character and intentionally make decisions that aren't necessarily the strongest, it often leads to even more fun and chaos. CK3 out of the box, the reviews are coming in. It's a masterpiece. It's an absolute and utter masterpiece. Really, really, really stupendous. It really does. I tweeted as a joke that CK3 is exactly the same as Crusader Kings 2, except everything is different and better. And that's really kind of how I feel about it. Some people are going to ask about things that maybe aren't available right out of the box of CK3. Republics would be an example of that. On the flip side, because they want to do a proper full-featured set of stuff for Republics. Because even in CK2, Republics, they were interesting, but I think there's a reason that they weren't all that popular to play as. Whereas once they came out with, like, the pagan stuff, that's all people played in CK2. And they were like, huh, that's interesting, okay. And they learned a lot about it. One of the big things in CK3 is the religious mechanics that were introduced in Holy Fury, which were, oh, they were gorgeous, they were amazing, they were fantastic. Those are now a core base part of the game, sort of, you know, first-class feature. They've expanded on it, and it's nuts. One of the crazy stats about Crusader Kings 3 is, at release, Crusader Kings 3 has more playable religions than Crusader Kings 2 has after 8 years of patches and all the expansions. Despite all the extra content from CK2, CK3 has double the amount of playable religions at release and has a built-in make your own religion kind of feature right from the start. So you can roll your own heresies or your own pagan religions or whatever you want to do. You can make your own religions right out of the box as part of the core gameplay. And I think that really goes to show like some of what's going on here, which I think is quite spiffy. I didn't realize I'm not actually in the main menu, so let me go ahead and do that. Bum, 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 bum. Roll your own heresies. Exactly, right? Who doesn't want a game like that? Also, what's really cool is whatever family, whatever character you played last is on your main menu. So whatever your autosave or whatever it is, whatever your most recent save is, this is your character. So this is probably Ivor the Boneless, probably his wife and one of his sons or something like that. That's a neat touch. Probably his heir is probably what it is. It's probably character, spouse, heir. Lovely touch. You know, it's a little things, but it's going to be great. Let's jump in. Actually, before we do, let's take a quick look at a settings screen. Let's be thorough here. Lots of graphic settings. I have everything basically maxed out. As far as I know, now I don't know about graphically and in terms of the specs, but other aspects of the game feel like they run faster in here as a base than CK2. One of the big things with CK2 is they've gotten big and sort of bloating trying to manage all those characters. And one of the things that CK3 allows them to do is rewrite how the database for all the characters and everything is handled, and optimize a few things, which is going to be a nice touch. Got audio things. In the game filter, we've got a few things. We've got the autosave, but this tooltip thing, we're going to talk about this when we get in, because this is insane. The new tooltip system in CK3 is, oh, you don't even know. And the amazing thing is how tunable it is. It's not going to make any sense what I'm talking about here. Wait until we get in the game. Well, some of you will watch some dev diaries and stuff. The new tooltip system is so good and is going to go a long way to both making the game more accessible for new players, as well as providing more information to established players, which is going to be one of the themes we're going to talk about a lot. And yeah, if you don't want gross-looking people, you can turn off the graphics for disease and injuries, but I think we're going to deal with it. Captain Penguin! Hey, Penguin! Quill, the time has arrived after COVID delays my kidney donation. Whoa! What? Kidney donation September 21st in London. BBC will be filming it for a hospital documentary. We'll be watching your streams during recovery. Hopefully some more CK3 just in time. Holy shit! Like on so many levels. Holy shit. That's crazy sauce. And you'll have to let us know when that episode airs. I'll see if I can get a British stream or something going on for that. That's really neat. All right. So, new game. All right, the new game screen. One of the things, and Paradox has had a lot of discussions about this publicly for previous titles, EU4, Hoi4, all these things, timeline possibilities and things like this. At release, CK3 has 2 bookmarks available, 2 time bookmarks. There are 6 buttons here. What they're doing is they're highlighting different areas. But you can play in 1066, you can start in 1066, and you can start in 867. 1066, probably all you in chat, but most people will associate with the Norman Conquest, when Willie, the punk over here, decides, I want to go and conquer England. And by starting in 1066, you get a glance of the world that is going to be fairly recognizable, because a lot of the nations and kingdoms and things that are established in 1066 sort of to certain extents kind of survive to today. And it definitely feels like it's our world, but earlier. Then when you scroll back to the 867 start, this, I believe, was my favorite bookmark in CK2, which I think is one of the reasons they made it one of the 2 starting dates in CK3 here, is the world is a little less recognizable. Things are very, very different, but it's also really interesting. If you want to go really sort of, if you want a world that's going to shake up and look very different than it does, than what happened in reality, the 867 start is going to lead to a lot of that. Why 867? As far as I can tell, there are 2 major sort of events that would be particularly relevant to the setting of CK2 here in 867. One is it's heavily tied to the Danish, the pagan, the Viking invasion of Great Britain. I think technically it might have started around 865, but I think things really were ramping up around 867. So there's a lot of fighting. I mean, here, for example, Ivor the Boneless here is in the Isles, and he's a Viking that is going to be fighting. And there's a few of them all getting up in here. The other big thing that's going to be a little bit different, or that's a significant event in 867, is when there is a new dynasty that takes over the Byzantine Empire, and you get this this sort of renaissance of the Byzantine Empire that lasts for, I don't know, 300-400 years, that one there? Because I think it does change dynasties before the fall of Constantinople in 47, something like that. I think there is another dynastic change, but I think that's why 867 was sort of picked as a bookmark originally in CK2, because it's pretty big events, but it turns out it's a really fun year to play in. 1453, thank you. I was like, it's not right at the EU4 start, it's a few years later, but I can't remember what it is. So there's the 2 years. Now, in each one of these 2 starting years, there are these 3 sort of examples of interesting characters to play around a certain theme. So we've got the Carolingians over here, great adventurers, including, hey, who's this Count Eudes guy? This is who we're going to be playing as today, by the way. And yeah, the Wrath of the Northmen. But there's no reason you can't just hit this button. It says play as any ruler, and literally play as anyone in the world in that time. The map, gorgeous. I love the idea. It's like this paper map. I like that the frilled edge over here is a way to like add in a few more provinces in a few ways. Whereas you have a straight edge, you'd have to sort of arbitrarily, like you'd have to, you know, maybe fill in all those gaps. I kind of like that for style. I think that's a very nice way of handling it. It looks gorgeous. And then as you zoom in, the map changes into different modes automatically as you continue to zoom in. One of the things, so we're going to see a trend of this. And this is, okay, one of the things, and I say this all the time about strategy games, is with strategy games, you need to show the player as much information as possible, but in a way that's not overwhelming. It has to be well-organized information. And, you know, whether we're talking about Civ, whether we're talking about Europa Universalis, whether we're talking about Crusader Kings or whatever, they all go through the same sort of thing. We've got so much to show, and how do we organize it? One of the things in CK3 that they've really worked on is trying to come up with a cleaner interface. Not an interface that shows you less, not an interface that does less, but an interface that's much easier to follow. And there's a bunch of little things, like, for example, the map that sort of changes how it displays things depending on your zoom level. If executed poorly, this would be terrible, but it's executed really well, and what it does, it saves how many map modes you've got to play with, which is really nice. We've got a handful to play with over here on the nation picker map. So for example, we could look at the de jure kingdom titles, for example, or just currently independent realms, that sort of thing. No, that Fargman, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm avoiding the word simplified. The user interface is not a simplified version of Crusader Kings II. It's a cleaned up version. It's a better organized version. I don't feel like there's anything missing, as you'll see once we jump in. In fact, in certain aspects, there are more things going on in here than in CK2. Take a look at the religious map. So one of the interesting things here is that at release, which I just was talking about, at release, Crusader Kings III has twice as many playable religions as Crusader Kings II had, with all of the expansions and 8 years of patches. And a lot of these are heresies and variants. Like, over here in Ireland, we've got insular Christianity is what is over here. A rural church that drifted away from Roman Catholic Orthodoxy some centuries ago, insular Christianity has lost many of its once distinctive features at the insistence of its mother church. It yet retains a greater emphasis on penance and monasticism, and incorporates many traditional Celtic marriage customs foreign to wider Christendom. What flavor of Christianity would you like today? Got a Satru over here, which is a Norse, unreformed Norse faith, for example. Once we get into the game, what's really cool is each one of these religions have different things they consider to be sins and virtues, and there's the massive variation in laws. It's actually more powerful than the Holy Fury stuff, which was insanely cool. Yeah, there are lots of subvariants of different religions, and tons of foundable ones and switchable ones that will show up. So there's a certain number on the map. What you see in 867 is going to be different than what you see in 1066, and will furthermore be different from what you see when you start the game. Like, you know, play as Iceland? I mean, that would be cool. I'll stop now. Hey, we got some whiskey and chocolate coming in. Just now, we've got Casey the Panda Man. Thank you very much, Casey. Are you going to play with the tutorial on, just so we get a look at how the tutorial system works? That wasn't the intention, just because the tutorial, I think, has you playing in Iberia, and I have a particular character in mind to play as. We could take a look at it. Maybe not today. Maybe I'll do a video going through it. That might not be a terrible idea. And Aku says, I like how it's on a table, makes me feel like a king looking over a map. Yeah, I like that physical state of it. But again, when you zoom in, it can lose some of those visual frills because they're not important anymore, and might lead to a worse map presentation. But yeah, I like, you know, the sea monsters. Like, it feels like a proper old-timey map, right? And Vardic says, if I remember right, I found your channel through an old CK2 video and always enjoyed your content, so I'm happy to be here for CK3. Seems appropriate. Well, thank you very much, Vardic. Okay. So, we're going to load someone now, just so that we can get into the game and take a look around. This is not who we're going to necessarily play a campaign with. Who should we just load in as? Tell you what, my campaign, I'm planning on playing a French Catholic count. He's 10 years old, is who we're going to start on, Count Eudes, or Odo. So, should we load up one of the pagans? Or the Byzantines? Gotland. Somewhere in Africa, we could look at some of that too. Probably pagan or Byzantines. So a lot of people are asking about Byzantium, so we'll do that. Now, of course, we could play as the emperor himself, Basilios, the guy's so great they named him twice. Or we could play as one of the lesser people. Maybe we'll just we'll pick someone Duke level and just poke around over there and see what it looks like. So let's do that. We might take a look at a few different rulers and religions before we get to our proper Let's Play. There are customizable game rules, something that only got introduced into CK2 a few patches in, but I love so much because there's so much to this game, and different people want to play in slightly different styles. And I like, multiplayer. Are you allowed to do assassinations or not? Because sometimes they can be a little spammy and like abusive and too powerful. But yeah, you can tune so many things. Hey, end date. But we're gonna leave everything on default, and we'll jump in. Instant load. That part is nice. I mean, there's a load time to load the map to pick our character in the first place, but there we go. All right, so here's the map screen. I remember seeing this at PDXCon last year, where it was announced. I got an advanced preview of certain things. I saw a few more things that you guys didn't see in the preview at that time. But I remember the user interface being like, well, first of all, like, oh guys, there's so much less stuff in here. Oh no, they've gone and simplified the game and made it dumb. And no, it just turns out they've really gotten good at user interface design. Like, really good. 3D characters, they are surprisingly good. The little movement thrown in is pretty decent. I mean, some of the faces are sometimes hit and miss, but first of all, that's humans are sometimes hit and miss with their faces, and CK2 definitely had the thing. But overall, it actually really works with flavor. You see the different characters listed in here, and I think it's in a way that's really successful. What's the de jure Empire and Kingdom map look like? We'll take a look at that in just a second. Can you create your own characters? So the character creator is not available at release. That was something in CK2 that did come later, and it's something that some people use, but and some people, like, you know, considered it to be, you know, like, oh, they used it all the time, but most players didn't. And that's one of the things that was really interesting with listening to some of the technical conversations that Paradox has had over the years about things. Like, for example, in Europe Universalis 4, there's, like, I don't know, 16 different dates you can start with. Everyone only ever plays 1444. It's like less than 1% of people that ever play a serious game in the other timelines. They're like, huh, yeah, okay. So, you know, we're putting so much effort into this. Should it be there or not? And the character creator is the same. Some people used it a bunch, but most people did not. So they're like, well, maybe we'll bring it back, but we don't necessarily have to prioritize it for day one. Republics are the same way. Like, Republic systems were really cool. I had a great campaign as Venice once. That's all I ever played for Republic. So no Republics at start. So we'll see where those things come in later on. So let's go through the various parts of the interface over here. How about that? How's the learning curve in CK3? Oh, I think while I feel like CK3 has all the stuff CK2 has, I think it's going to be a little easier to learn. First of all, the tutorial is fantastic, and the cleaner interface is just a little easier, I think, to sort of get in position. The character sheets here still look like crazy. There's so much going on. Now, to anyone who's played CK2, this character sheet is very similar. There's a slight reorganization of certain things. So we have some of our traits over here. So paranoid, zealous, gregarious. By the way, we can now take a look at that tooltip system I was talking about. Hey, gregarious. It says, you know, attraction opinion +5. Hey, what's that? Well, I can go down here and mouse over attraction. Attraction is type of an opinion that affects characters whose sexual orientation matches your gender. Oh, hey, yeah, what's the deal with character opinion? Oh, they go from -100 to plus 100. Oh, might be important for spy master. Hey, what's a spy master, you guys? Oh, it's a counselor. Oh, what's a counselor? Oh, powerful, vast. Ah! And I think that's one of the reasons that they were able to clean up the UI so much, is because with the sort of nested tooltip system, you don't have to worry about, like, okay, we want to be able to tell people these things, so we just, you know, there has to be a giant block of text over here explaining it. Oh, but it's too much and people don't read it. And even with a giant block of text, we have to pick and choose what we include. Now there's not any of that. You get contextual information on whatever you're looking for. So orthodoxy, oh, it's an organized Christian faith. Oh, okay, we get some information about that. Wonderful. So yeah, we've got some of our traits. So paranoid, zealous, gregarious is who our character is. We got our education here. So I'm an adequate bargainer. And you can get additional types of, so this is a lifestyle trait that comes over here. We've got the patriarch trait from our lifestyle system, which we'll take a look at just a second. You still have your 5 stats, the same as before: diplomacy, martial, stewardship, intrigue, and learning, and they do roughly the same thing as before. We've also got a prowess stat over here, which is best to think about as the sort of personal combat skill for the characters, which was something that was introduced in CK2 at some point. This is particularly important for knight characters, which is a whole thing. We've got a religion, we've got our culture listed over here. We've got a primary title, so we are the Duke of Opsicon, and then we have our other title, so there's the... The game's paused, right? Why did things happen? AI must be doing things in the background. And then we've got 2 county titles over here, our domain limit. Here's our dread. So dread is something that's new, and I'm very, very excited for. In CK2, it was hard to play as a complete bastard, because if you did mean, tyrannical things, everyone hated you and would ultimately just try to, like, you know, overthrow you. Now, dread is a mechanic that helps you play as an evil, terrible bastard, because as you do certain evil, terrible things, yes, you will accrue tyranny, which pisses off all your vassals, but you'll also accrue dread. And with enough dread, people aren't willing to mess with you. And it depends on their personality traits. If someone is shy or timid or content, then it takes very little dread for them to be like, no man, I'm not getting involved, this guy's too freaky. Whereas if someone is brave or wrathful or anything like that, they might not even care if you're at 100 dread. They're like, you know what, I don't care, man, you pissed me off, it's fun time, murder time. Love that this is now a actual mechanic in game. It's such a minor thing. It's just, they added in 1 extra number, and on certain events and decisions, the number might go up and it might go down. And then the AI gets a little tiny tweak to take into account this number. This is such an easy... Someone could have modded this probably in an afternoon. But it's going to completely transform how the game plays. I think it's fantastic. Really excited for that. We got our gold, we've got our prestige, we've got our piety. There are some things to talk about with prestige and piety that is new. So, one of the things that was always kind of a bit of an issue in Crusader Kings II, the more prestige you had, the more everyone liked you. Yeah, mold. The more piety you had, the more religious people liked you. But those are also currency that you would spend. So you would spend your prestige, you would spend your piety on different things, and then you would lose some of those bonuses because you weren't quite as prestigious, or somehow you weren't as pious. Like, you could spend piety to, I don't know, build a church, but then you were less pious. Doesn't really make any sense, does it? So now the way it works is this. You still accrue prestige and piety, and you still use it as a currency. But that is separated from the status of your character. Whenever you gain prestige, in addition to just gaining prestige, which you can spend as a currency, you also earn progress towards fame. And this doesn't go away. When you spend prestige, you don't spend your fame. So as you accrue more and more and more prestige, your fame level goes up. So our character here that we just sort of randomly picked, we are currently established, which is the baseline of fame. Not very interesting. It is the second level. There's a lower level of fame. But establishes the baseline. If we accrue a total of 1,000 prestige, and again, we don't have to store it up, right? We just have to have earned 1,000 prestige. We can spend it all, it's fine. But once we've done that, we will become distinguished. And now all of a sudden, the secular opinion, so non-religious people, everyone will like us 5 more, and we can have an extra Knigget to lead our troops, which is a whole extra new mechanic. And that's cool. The same thing happens with piety. So again, you gain piety, you can spend piety, but as you gain piety, you also go up in a level of devotion, which makes religious people think you're kind of awesome. There's a similar mechanic for renown over here. As your family gains, does things, and the bigger it is, the more impressive your family is, your dynasty as a whole gains renowned, and your dynasty as a whole will level up. So if we got to insignificant, so we're currently obscure, if we got to insignificant, all our children would be born with more prestige. The other thing is, the more impressive our dynasty is, the shorter the long reign, or the more impressive the long reign bonus gets. I don't think it affects the short range, but the longer range gets better. It's quite nice. The 18 Knights of Quill, that would be nice. Dread Knights. Yeah, let's talk about Knights. Let's talk about Kniggets. So, in the military screen...
It's whiskey and chocolate.
It's whiskey and chocolate. Who dat? Oh, it's no one! Hey, no one! So I hear there's a new Paradox game with a 3 in the title. I wonder when we'll get to see it. That's right, guys. Tomorrow I'm streaming Victoria 3. Be awesome. So the knights mechanic, they are named culturally. So here, because we're Byzantine or Greek or whatever we are, rather than have our knights be called knights, they're called Hetaria. Whatever, man. They're knights. They're over here. So in here we've got our knights, and these are people in our court. They're sorted by their prowess, which is heavily influenced by their martial skill, but are sorted by their prowess, and these are the people who can become knights. You can invite more people to your court as well who would become decent knights. You can see that you can individually recruit people, so Melecho. So there's a concept of guests. So one of the things they've done in this game is your court will be smaller than it was in CK2, because instead of bloating up your court, what happens is you get a lot of guests. And they're sort of part of your court. They stick around for a while and then move on if they don't get hired for something. So you get this constant sort of flow in and flow out of possible people you can recruit as knights or counselors or marry or whatever. But they cycle in and out, so you've always got sort of a fresh pool of guests over there. But you can recruit your guests permanently to your court, and you can do things like give them, make them one of the knights. And the knights you have do participate in battles in your armies, and the ratio of knights that you have to total soldiers from your levies or men-at-arms, which are similar to retinues in CK2. Not exactly the same, but they're similar. The more knights you have, the more men-at-arms you have compared to your normal levies, which are just, you know, farmers with sticks. The higher the quality of your army is. Basically, if you play EU4, you can think of it as like, if you have more knights and more men-at-arms, it's like you have more morale and more discipline. That's not, you know, how the combat mechanics works necessarily in here, but it's that sort of thing. So you can have a smaller army beat a bigger army if it's higher quality, which is fun and interesting all of a sudden. It's not just bigger number wins, although generally speaking, bigger number will win. Is there still a character finder tool, says Hungry Computer? Yes, indeed there is. And like with most things in this game, it is like CK2, but possibly slightly better. With one exception, it doesn't have a filter to find people who would be willing to join your court. Maybe it was an intentional thing to leave out because, you know, it was kind of gamey. I don't know. It does make me a little sad because I really like abusing the hell out of that. So we'll see. So you get the character finder here. You can sort by their various skills as per normal, but there's actually a filter over here. You can sort by lots of things, including the default is, well, actually not on this screen. I was gonna say the default is relevance, but there's no relevance concept over here at all. That can't, you know, that's not a thing. But there's also the filter over on the left. So we can say, show me everyone who is not a ruler, is an adult, is male, but is unmarried. You know, you can filter all that, and you can right-click, and we can choose some options over here. They've collapsed this menu a little bit and hidden some things that may not be as important or meaningful depending on context. Like offering someone who's not in your direct court, maybe, you know, ward and guardianship. These are not very common things, so, you know, maybe they can be hidden over here to tweak things. We can also pin our characters before. We can go to their location as before, which is kind of nice. Seduce him. Hooks! What are hooks? Oh, baby. All right, hooks and secrets. Let's talk about this intrigue screen. Love it so much. First of all, you can actually do two schemes at once, if I recall. There's the hostile scheme, so you can be like trying to assassinate someone, and a personal scheme like trying to sway someone. So you can run these two at the same time. There's this whole secret mechanic. Secrets are things you know about other people. Like, you happen to know that... this was super relevant in my video. If you go back and double check the video that I did where I was over here in Spain, and the secret scheme. So, secrets that I knew about myself, for example, were that I had murdered my brother, and that I was secretly a witch. I mean, I'm not a witch at all. That would be wrong. Yeah, I was secretly a witch. So those are secrets I knew. You can find out secrets about other people as well. And then once you have a secret about them, you can choose what you do. You can just expose the secret, which, you know, will make everyone think that you're a kinslayer or whatever it is. Or you can go to them and try to blackmail them. And blackmailing people is one way that you can get a hook on them. A hook is like a favor in CK2, but I hated the favor system in CK2 because 99% of the time it was super boring and didn't really do anything useful for you at all. Really, really, really sucky. In here, however, having a hook or a favor on someone is so potent and affects so many aspects of the game. First of all, I think for most people, it might depend on culture or something, I'm not sure, but if you're like the head of a family, you automatically have a weak hook. There's different levels of hooks. You automatically have a weak hook with everyone born in your family, because you can be like, no, listen, dude, you have to do this for your family. You have to, you know, agree to this or that or whatever. If we go to a random character here and try to do something, if I go to one of my vassals, right, and I want to modify his feudal contract, so there's no central screen for laws, for feudal laws anymore, for taxes and levies. Instead, now it's handled on a case-by-case, person-by-person basis, which is, I think, a big improvement because changing your feudal laws, well, first of all, a lot of times it wasn't necessarily clear which one was better because it tended to be a, like a pro and a con, right? If you were taking more levies in exchange for lowering taxes or something like that. And it was hard to say whether one was stronger or not, and people would get cranky and weird and various things. Now it's like, okay, for each one of your vassals, you get to choose what their taxes are and what their levies are. And obviously we want these to be as high as possible if we could, because why not? The problem is, if I want to raise this guy's taxes, first of all, he's going to get pissy. In fact, everyone is. This would be an act of tyranny, causing my subjects to lose 20 opinions. So all of my subjects would get upset with me if I raised this guy's taxes. And, you know, him especially. But if I had a hook, and I don't have it, but if I had a hook, I would just click this little button here and say, dude, you owe me. And he's like, yep, all right, fine, higher taxes it is. No longer tyranny. So now all of a sudden, if I can find out some secret about Count Cheriton over here, I can use that to raise his taxes without any penalty, or raise his levy. If I had multiple hooks, I might be able to do both at the same time, I'm not sure. But yeah, we could use that. You can use hooks for marriages. You can use hooks for bringing people in on your schemes. You can use hooks for tons of things. They're very, very powerful. Very powerful. Hook filter in the character finder. There wasn't it? Because that's why people brought it up? Yeah. So if I reset this to default and say, show me people I have a hook on, I don't have any right now. And chocolate. But very powerful, and very powerful things you can do with your court. In fact, not your court, rather, your council. Your spy master now has a new job to find secrets. I love it! Hey, Slimothy Jimbles. That's a great name. What was your message? Right, went away. Hey, Quill, really excited to see some CK3. Oh, by the way, I'm a great Catholic, hashtag not a witch. Today we are all hashtag not a witch. Is there a see all hook screen? Yeah, so on your Intrigue screen, over here on the hooks and secret, there you go, hooks and secret. So these are hooks I have. These are secrets I know. These are hooks other people have on me. And these are my secrets that have not been made public yet. Now, just because a secret hasn't been made public doesn't mean that someone else doesn't already know it. In fact, even if someone finds out about it and starts blackmailing you about it, it's still your secret because someone else could still find out about it and leak it, you know, but it means it's still secret. So yeah, of course we get a screen giving us all those details. CK3 so good. Let's go through the rest of these screens really quick and take a look around. So, as mentioned, there's not the same big law screen currently. Partially is because some of the things were like, you know what, it wasn't necessarily that much fun. Other things were like, we can move this on a vassal-by-vassal basis, which is excellent. But we have, so in terms of laws, there's two global, I guess, laws that you can tweak. There's the Crown Authority, so you can go and bump this up depending on your technology level. And it'll give you more power. So with low Crown Authority, your vassals like you more because they like that you're not too bossy. As you go up, so you can see we lose the +10 opinion, but if we get up to level 2, then all of a sudden we can revoke titles, vassals can be retracted, we get some extra powerful features, and that continues to be the case as we crank it up. You can see with absolute Crown Authority, our vassals aren't too happy because we're very bossy and in charge of them. On the other hand, they have to give us way more levies, way more taxes. Holy gift subs! And I know there was a ton earlier as well. Thank you very much, everyone. We got a great party going on today, and it's super appreciated. How to get name in game? Oh yeah, if you haven't done it already, do a hashtag name in chat. You'll just do it one time. If you do too many times, you'll get banned for spamming. One time because it's unique by username. And we'll start naming some babies after people in chat soon. So there's the crown laws. There's also the ability to change succession laws here. And this screen has been redone, and I think it's quite cool. So it's been split into two things. One is the succession law, and one is the gender law. So the gender law is going to be pretty straight up clear. what gender is allowed to inherit. So right now we're on male preference, which means that men take precedence, but if there's no male heirs, then they will go to daughters instead. We go equal, so it's whoever's firstborn gets the first crack at it, and you can go all the way from male only to female only as well. Costs you some prestige to change that, and you might need some technology to be able to unlock it. So that's the gender laws. Succession laws, I love the way this is organized. So they have 3 variants of multiple heirs and 3 variants of single heir. Now, it's always better and more powerful to go to a single heir. In fact, you probably want something like primogeniture, which is just your oldest child, your firstborn child inherits everything you've got. But this is actually, you gotta work to get there. You need high crown authority, which probably needs an innovation, a technology, royal prerogative, for example. So it takes some work to go ahead and unlock these things. Whereas these multiple heirs is the much more common thing, where your lands get split up among your various children, and it does in a few different ways. So with high partition here, most of your titles goes to your primary heir, your eldest child, or whoever you have named as an heir, for example, which you can do. You can designate an heir if you want by hitting this button here. So this is close to single heir, but not quite. Whereas Confederate partition is like the worst because it splits all your titles between your children, and if need be, it'll even create new titles, so you can't get away by like not forming duchies or something. So this is the hardest one to grow big on, although it's the best one for having lots of fun. We can take a look at our domain. So this is all the land we control directly. We can even see that they've got empty holdings and things. We can see how many taxes and levies these individually bring. We're going to take a look at our land very, very soon. Our current vassals and our succession laws. Military screen, our armies. So this is our levies we can raise, and the knights and men-at-arms we just looked at. We can recruit mercenaries over here. Mercenaries work differently than in CK2. It's a little easier to budget for them because you basically pay for them up front rather than monthly. Although there's some maintenance and things there, but it makes it a lot easier to know if you're going to go bankrupt or not by hiring mercenaries. It's just a better way of displaying it, but otherwise they work basically the same. Holy orders are basically mercenaries, but religious for special holy war stuff. The council we just looked at, there are some different modes and jobs we can give to our council. One of the things I really love with your spouse here is you can choose what they're working on. Their default of assist ruler, I think in each one of their skill categories, they give you 1/3 of their points. Well, you can have them focus on a category, which I think gives you half of their points in that category. So overall, you're getting less. Like if I get her to focus on chivalry, she'll give me +4 martial, but the +4 martial isn't as much as the 6 points total that I'm getting if she's on generic sort of help out with everything kind of stuff. You'll also get tons of events based on what your spouse and your various chancellors are doing when we start the game. We're going to see a bunch of events in the bottom right corner here that are not critical events, so you can ignore them, but they tell you some things about what's going on in the realm, which is really, really wonderful. The court over here, so guests, courtiers, prisoners if we had any, we can release them, we can execute them, we can torture them to find out secrets. Spoiler alert, not everything you can do in Crusader Kings is a good act. But yeah, if you get prisoners, you can totally torture them to find out what secrets they know. You know, it'll probably come up at some point. Intrigue, I mean, we'll be assassinating people, we'll be doing all kinds of evil schemes as we go, I'm sure. Factions that can form against us, against our liege. I mean, since we have a liege, we can even create our own faction to gain independence or whatever. And then there's the decision screen over here, including the ability to put a little tag here. Let me know when this decision becomes available to hold a feast. Holding a feast is a good way to release stress. Stress? What? A whole other new mechanic! Gah! So there were ways in CK2 to become stressed and things like that, but it felt very random, and you didn't have a lot of control over it, and you didn't necessarily get a lot of warning. You just get an event, but like, surprise, you're stressed now, and you're like, yay. Well, now we have stress levels. It goes from 0 to 100. When you hit 100, your stress level goes up a notch, and things start to happen. So from 0 to 99, it's all the same. But once you hit 100, you get to your first stress level. Things start to happen. If you hit 200, you get the next one, and then 300, you get to the final stress level, where really bad things can start to happen, including things like mental breaks. Now, what's cool is when you get pop-ups for events in CK3, and there's multiple decisions to take, right? There have whiskey and chocolate from Belf Knight! Looking forward to watching many hours of CK3 from you? Oh yeah, there definitely will be. Thank you very much, Belf Knight. Right, when you get decision pop-ups, right? You know, you do A, B, C, D, that sort of thing. And sometimes in CK2 or EU4 or whatever, so there might be decision A and B, but sometimes you'll get a special C, which is available because you have a particular trait. And that's cool, and some of those things still exist in this game. But one of the things they've done here is, generally speaking, you'll get your A, B, C, D kind of options that are all there. But some options that are contrary to your character's traits, will cause you to gain stress. So, for example, I'm gregarious. I'm supposed to be out there and things. If there's some decision that comes up like, oh, a couple of people are having a debate, should I jump in? And like option B is like, no, I'll just sit quietly and just listen. It'll probably say something like, this will cause you 15 stress because you're gregarious. I'm gregarious. I'm not supposed to sit quietly. So it gives you more power. You can make a choice to play in a certain way. But if you're not playing based on what your character's, traits are, it'll stress them out. But then there's ways to get rid of stress. For example, you can hold a feast or go on a hunt. These are good ways to do that. If you get a pet, like a dog or a cat, there'll be a button to pet your dog or your cat, which reduces your stress. Because life is wonderful. Alright, so there are some map modes. These are de jure duchies, de jure kingdoms, de jure empire titles. We can look at the current religion map mode. We can look at the current cultures. We can look at the houses of the families that are in charge here. And then there's the realm default map mode. And it's really good. When we get into a war, it does a really good job with like glowing red borders to show you who you're at war with and that sort of thing. Speaking of the geography of the map, so one of the things that has changed pretty dramatically from CK2 is that individual baronies are now on the map. So, for example, we zoom in here. There's the province of, say, Mysia over here. This is one province. But it has 1, 2, 3, 4 baronies inside them. And they're actually represented on the map. For warfare purposes, generally speaking, you're just going to be sieging on the barony with a castle. So this one here with the circle, for example. And it's got the little name tag here as well, too. From ownership and what kind of stuff we get out of these places. But you can walk through each one of these provinces and you can see things. Like we can see there's a little city on the map over here. And one of the things that means is the pop-up for the province is a little bit different because it doesn't have like every single one of the holdings in there. Here we're just looking at the castle of Militopolis, and over here we're looking at the city of Hoymanunun. Man, it's a good thing I'm not actually going to be playing here because I'm not going to be able to pronounce anything. There's still ways to improve these places, so you can upgrade the town. Actually, maybe we'll look at the barony itself, right? We can upgrade the castle to different levels, depending on if we've got the money and the technology for it. In addition to that, we can build extra buildings within here. So within the castle, here, I've got 4 slots inside of the castle to add buildings. But there's more than 4 buildings. It's not like CK2 where you end up sort of building all the things eventually. No, here we have to pick and choose. Wow, I want walls and towers. It gives me taxes at more fort level and bigger garrison. Ooh, but farms and fields giving me even more taxes. In fact, several of these things give me taxes. Money's good, but oh, I could just have barracks, which give me much bigger levies. And what? My heavy infantry and spearmen do more damage. Well, I can't live without that. But I also can't live without the military camp to give me archer and skirmisher damage. I want all of them. But you've got to pick, because there's only 4 slots here, for example. Different things will have different amounts of slots. Anything that requires you to make interesting and meaningful decisions is a big win to me. CK2 is mostly, if you've got money, build one of the things. There might be a preferred order, but mostly you built everything in your primary holding. But here you got to pick and choose. And each one of those buildings, once they're built, can also be leveled up. I don't know if any one of my holdings has a building. No, not right now. But you see how the castle can be leveled up? The same thing is true. If I go ahead and build the farm and fields, there we go. Got 8 levels of upgrades. Because, 4 is too little. I don't know, man. Alright, we're going to start our campaign in about 15 minutes. I do want to look at a few of the other empires. I want to talk about a couple more things at the top of the screen over here. We got more whiskey and chocolate! I'm going to get to that in 1 second. So, as per typical Paradox games, important alerts, important things you want to respond to right away, show up as pop-ups at the top. For example, we have an unmarried heir. We probably want to get our heir married. That seems like a pretty good idea, so we can arrange marriage over here. The arrange marriage screen is a great example of this new relevance filter that's on by default on most screens. It tries to pick something that makes sense. So it tries to pick something of an appropriate age. It does prioritize people with, various titles and claims. It prioritizes people with good genetic traits, but you can also filter. So let's say I want to filter, show me people with inheritable genetic traits. Excellent. So we've got Matilda over here, probably Matilda, who is a genius. Oh, well, we like geniuses. That's great. We've also got intelligence. So I like how genius has got 5 candles. It's +5 to everything. Intelligent is 3 candles. It's +3 to everything. Then we got down here, we got quick, +1 to everything, 1 candle. What else we got? Robust. That's what I look for in a woman. I want someone who's robust. We got fecund for extra fertility. And you can see this trait is congenital, so it can be inherited down our bloodlines. Here, we can just get him maybe married to Matilda over here. So you can see that myself, I will lose prestige because we're marrying someone who's unlanded. She will gain a ton of prestige because she's marrying a relative of a duke. If for some reason her liege wasn't willing to arrange this marriage, but I had a hook, I could also use this to force it, which is great. Clear the characters. We do matrilineal marriage, of course. We could send that proposal. That's done. So that was one thing. Oh, we've got another important pop-up. I don't have a lifestyle chosen. Let me come right back to that. Because in addition to these critical pop-ups that, like, no, you really want to deal with these right away, we've got this. This is brilliant. This issues button. You could ignore it the entire game if you want. But this is stuff that can go on, but isn't critical. But it might be stuff you want to deal with, or if you're looking for something to do, you can check the issues over here. So, for example, hey, you know, your council's not busy. You could be fabricating a claim. You want to fabricate a claim? In fact, it suggests, hey, the neighboring county of Aeolus is both rich and prosperous, but you can't conquer it without a CB. Send your court chaplain or realm priest to do it. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, you can click here. We can take a look at the county. That's fine. And we could always send in our court. Sorry, not our court, our council. It's your bishop that does it here. Fabricate claim on county. We could go ahead and deploy him to wherever you wanted to fabricate a claim. Where was it actually suggesting? Oh, right here, Aeolus. So all the green places are places we can do it. So we'll be like, yeah, okay, I'll send them over there. Now, one of the big changes as well is they got rid of some of the annoying bullshit RNG from Crusader Kings II. If you would send, in CK2 is your chancellor, right? But here's your chaplain, either one. If you send them to fabricate a claim, you'd be told like, oh, there's a 10% chance per year that it'll fabricate a claim. And that's it. And so you'd wait and be like, so every month there was a chance that he'd get it, and you'd be like 3 years later and like, is it working? Is it not working? Like, oh, I just have to hope that the dice come up properly. No, none of that anymore. Now, you get an actual progress meter. The amount of time it takes to fill it depends on his skill. This guy's a 12, which isn't bad, you know. Not great, not terrible. It's going to take him 18 months. But in 18 months, you will have a claim. I mean, unless he gets arrested or murdered or something, which, I mean, things could still happen, of course. But now you can actually get confirmation that things are happening. Ah, oh, so good. Similar things with the sway interaction. Even with the assassinations, what it is there's a timer, and when it gets filled out, there's a percentage chance that it will succeed. There's also a percentage chance that you will get caught. Those are two separate roles. You could succeed but get caught. You could fail but not get caught, or any combination really. But it's a meter. You know when it's like when everything's going to be coming together. Okay, and now we go. And I think I like that a lot because sometimes you just be like, how long has this guy been doing this? Is it ever going to work? I don't know. Little tiny frustration, gone, eliminated, which is nice. Get told other family members can marry. Hey, we don't have enough knights. Maybe you want to do something. You can designate a garden. This is also where you get told if you can declare war against someone. If you have a CB against someone, or you have many CBs against many people, they will show up in here. Because it's like, at any point you're like, what should I do right now? What can I do? You click here and be like, oh, I can go and kick some ass somewhere. Wonderful, lovely. We're also in a war. To start with this character, we happen to start in the war. Here's the war status screen. Total soldiers on both sides, war score, and your ability to negotiate. This is very similar to CK2. Very, very, very similar. Warfare is a little bit different because the combat mechanics have been changed a little bit, as well as the fact that you can move around the map, like in each one of these baronies a little bit more. Gives you more sense of physicality as you're moving around, which is fun. Yeah, Chancellors never firing CK2 is generally a sign they got bribed, but the game never explained that. Exactly. The rule of thumb tended to be if your Chancellor was trying to fabricate a claim for more than a couple of years and hadn't succeeded, they'd probably gotten bribed somewhere by then, and they wouldn't, so you got to move them around every couple of years. Ugh, what pointless micro. All right, yes, let's talk about these 3 buttons over here. Those are the last 3 things we're going to talk about before we jump into the campaign. Because someone just asked, a commander says, hey, how's the house system and stuff? So we got 3 buttons here. We got one for our dynasty, our house. We've got one for our religion, and we've got one for our culture. let's take a look at the Dynasty stuff. Oh, we haven't looked at lifestyles, but maybe we'll look at those when we start our Let's Play. Here. Lifestyle, you choose one, you choose a focus, and then you can go and invest in a perk tree. We'll look at that more when we do our actual gameplay, which starts in about 10 minutes. So our house. This is our house, which is in the middle of our street. Sorry. Your house. So you've got a dynasty and you've got a house. Everyone belongs in a dynasty and a house. Multiple houses can belong in a dynasty. You can have like a tree of different houses within a dynasty that can happen, which is actually going to be a relevant conversation to what we're going to be doing in France in a little bit. You can make cadet branches for your house as well, so you can start your own house, still within the same dynasty, where you would be in charge of that. By default, the house head and dynasty head is the most powerful person in that house or dynasty, which is one of the reasons. So if you, say, made a cadet branch, you might be head of your house, but might not be head of your dynasty, because there might be someone more powerful out there. The head of the dynasty gets to... sorry, wrong screen. The head of your dynasty can invest renown into your dynasty's legacies, because certain dynasties over the years and generations became known for stuff. They started to develop a reputation, and this is what's represented over here. For example, if you have a dynasty that's always known for being like unbelievably good warriors, these are the people who are going to go and conquer everything all the time. They make the best knights, etc., etc., etc. You would invest in the warfare dynastic legacy. So here, if we just if we get to House of Warriors, which is the first one, so you go left to right, every single person of our dynasty gets +2 prowess and 15% more knight effectiveness, and then that keeps going. I really like the Blood Dynasty. I think this is going to be very popular. So this is like, you know, we're really like breeding for genetics and eugenics and things like that. Things that basically CQ2 players do naturally. So this is increased chance of inheriting good congenital traits. I don't know how that works. I think there might be a bit of a Spartan thing where like a baby who doesn't match properly gets sort of punted off a cliff. That might be my headcanon for it. I don't know. But whatever it is, these people can make super good bloodlines. Like, we can even suggest a congenital trait become more common, like attractive and be a super gorgeous family. Or, you know, maybe genius. Genius. I mean, we pick genius, right? Yeah, if we picked attractive, we'd be like, what, the Lannisters? And then we keep breeding that into our bloodline one way or another, somehow. I like bounteous loins. Anyway, so that's the house tree. The religious tree. Now this, to me, is probably the best example of picking something that was developed in CK2 for an expansion, bringing it into the base game, and multiplying it by 10. The religious system in CK3 is like Holy Fury taking the next level. Holy Fury is kind of like a test build, a test run of the religious system for CK3. Every religion, and there's so many of them, have a series of things. So, I mean, you still have holy sites that are important, sure, but you have the beliefs, and the beliefs are split into different things. For example, the tenets. So here, for Orthodox Christianity, we do communion, which enables things. Seek indulgences, spiritual heads of faith may excommunicate, it determines what are virtues and vices, which we'll look at it in a second. Monasticism is also a thing for the Orthodox faith. Courtiers can take vows, become monks, okay? The Pentarchy is a monthly fervor for holy sites, and characters of this faith can do pilgrimages. Excellent. And then we've got a series of sins and virtues, and these vary by religion. So, with Orthodox Christianity, sins would be lustful, gluttonous, deceitful, sadistic, vengeful, whereas virtues would be chaste, temperate, honest, compassionate, and forgiving.
It's whiskey and chocolate.
These would be completely different for, say, pagans. Can I look at other religions from this screen? Yeah, there you go. Let's actually look at a Sutru over here, the Norse religion. So they're completely different. We got more whiskey and chocolate. I promise we're going to take a look at those. We got a couple in the queue. I promise we're going to take a look in just a second. So here, with the Asutru, we've got ancestor worship. We've got human sacrifice. We've got warmonger. It's going to feel a little bit different than playing a Catholic or an Orthodox or something. The sins are different as well. Deceitful, craven, forgiving. So craven was not considered a sin by the Christians, but is considered a sin by the Norse. They do not abide by cowards. They also don't like people who are forgiving. Like, no. You got to fight for your honor, man. whereas wrathful is considered a virtue, whereas it's a sin for some religions. Brave is considered a virtue, and vengeful is also considered a virtue. And then we've got your doctrines over here, so male-dominated, pluralist, theocratic. Then there's extra doctrines for the marriages. Hey, what kind of marriages can you have in this religion? What do you do about bastards? Can you divorce? Da-da-da-da. And that, makes a big difference. We look at Orthodox over here. Divorce can happen if it's approved by the head of the church. Consanguinity. Yep, so you can marry cousins, aunts, uncles. That's totally allowed. But not brothers and sisters. That would be going too far, right? But some other religions might be a little bit different there. Everything is allowed. And this can be tweaked. And here's the great thing. Your religion? All right, you know what? This orthodoxy was kind of cool, but I think we've got to give it our own personal spin on the flavor. Little button. Create new Christian faith. Excellent. In CK2, only pagans would have the fun of designing their own religion. But now that fun is available to everyone. So it's like slightly less orthodox custom religion. We choose things. We're like, you know what? Monastery? No. Let's go with armed pilgrims. That sounds like fun. We'll go this. We'll, equal religion. Divorce for everyone. Hooray! But no bastards. No bastards are going to be acknowledged ever, just because of whatever. It costs you piety to do that, and of course, some people may be kind of pissy. I love that you get a preview of who will convert. Your close family will convert, and some of your vassals may or may not convert. Here, all 3 of them would in this case, but yeah, my old faith would consider me hostile. This is how you play on hard mode. When you play on hard mode, is you go and make your own heresy and try to survive. And the last bit over here is the culture. This replaces the technology system from CK2, which was never, even in a couple iterations, let's be honest, was never the most compelling system. It's still pretty lightweight. So there's a few different sort of eras worth of technologies over here. Certain things are kind of time-gated. And what happens is you're developing specific technologies as opposed to just a new level in, say, legalism or something like that. More whiskey and chocolate! Promise we'll get to you in just a second. Who's that? Is that Aku? Oh, it's got the name in front of it, but we'll take a look in a second. So in green, these are technologies we unlocked. So moats over here, but we haven't unlocked barracks yet. So right now it's expected to be discovered in 37 years. It'll unlock some new military buildings, for example. So there's a few of those. The head of the culture chooses an aspect to be an innovation to be fascinated by, and this will get boosted. So for example, mustering grounds you can see is going to happen in 43 years. Barracks are going to happen in 37, and that's because we do have a fascination there. There's also ways that these rates can all be tweaked and different things like that. And you can see there's a lot of different innovations to unlock throughout the years. So in the High Medieval period, there's 18 different innovations to unlock, and they'll unlock new units, new laws, different things. I don't know how time-gated the various techs are. I haven't played enough and explored enough of that system to be able to give you some feedback over there. So yeah. So to me, at a glance, it still feels like CK2, except better to me. I don't know. Let's get ready to start playing. Let's get ready to start playing the game, and then we'll actually see what it feels like when we get going. Ultra screen scrolls. I did scroll it. Did I not? Yeah, we scrolled it. Yeah, and there are years, so you can't start your early medieval stuff until 900. So there is some date-based gating. I don't think there's anything within that, though. I think you can look at any of these texts within an era in any order that you want. That's going to be okay. Elephants. Elephantry. The Greek culture is not present in yourself. Oh, yeah, so we'd actually have to bring the Greek culture. So texts are unlocked not by nation, but by culture. So when something gets unlocked for the Greek culture, it applies to all Greeks, for example. So it's not just your nation. Which means I like it because it really makes culture feel like more of a concrete thing in this game, as opposed to previous things that was just like, well, what culture am I? What culture are you? Okay, there's a -10 opinion modifier. There's a couple other things, but not a whole heck of a lot. And I think this is a neat way of doing that. And yeah, so if we could somehow spread Greek culture, this doesn't even have to be our nation. We just have to get some Greeks in, say, India somehow. Then we'd have access to elephants. I love that idea. I think it's fantastic. All right. Let's pop to the main menu. Oh, yeah. You can switch characters when you want as well. Like, oh, that was really cool. Let's take a look at Ivar the Boneless over here. Okay, now we're playing as Ivar the Boneless. I don't think you can do that if you're on Iron Man mode. But yeah, you can just like you pop around. Look how much stuff he's got going on. 4 critical alerts, 11 issues, including, yo, we can declare 15 different wars, you guys. That's good stuff. In line to inherit some titles. Great, we can take a concubine. Lovely. All right, main menu.